Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. Before shovels are in the ground, voices are heard. The public weighs in on one of San Diego's biggest projects in years. Here's some of their concerns. And it's a wait that will get even longer. Those hoping to seek asylum in the U.S. talk to KPBS about a major setback.
When you inject in the person's heart, it sets up into a hydrogel and serves as this new template for healing inside the heart.
A breakthrough in the fight against one of the leading causes of death. We'll show you a new treatment at UC San Diego that's helping heart attack survivors.
And I started reading about it and I got excited. I almost got goosebumps because this made it possible.
And hear from a student who's among the first to benefit from a new tool to pay for college. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Thursday, September 12th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. It was a hotly contested ballot measure, and tonight we're getting a better picture of the development plans for SDSU West. The latest now from KPBS reporter Andrew Bowen.
Opening the stadium, our goal is 2022.
A few dozen people attended an open house on the SDSU campus today to learn more about the plans for Mission Valley's makeover. Voters approved a ballot measure last year that calls on the city to sell the land to the university for a campus expansion. The plan includes a new stadium, smaller than the one the Chargers played in, as well as apartments, retail, research space, and a 34-acre park along the San Diego River.
We also are instituting a robust transportation demand management program, which will help us to reduce our vehicle trips.
Laura Shin is SDSU's Director of Planning. She says most of the comments on the project have been about traffic impacts and that the university wants to create a community that is more pedestrian and bike-friendly. Ultimately, she says they're trying to imagine what the city of the future will look like.
We may not need 5,000 parking spaces in 10, 15 years. I mean, we don't really have a crystal ball, so we don't know exactly where we're going, but we're trying to plan ahead for a variety of contingencies and balance all of that.
There'll be people using this traffic rather than this horrible intersection down here.
Shane Haug is a resident of nearby Allied Gardens. He's still concerned about traffic impacts, but says he's glad the university will have more room to grow.
Just having it available is an incredible benefit for not just the university but the community overall.
SDSU plans to finish the new stadium by 2022, but the project isn't expected to be fully completed for another 15 years after that. People have until October 3rd to submit comments on the project's environmental impact report. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
SDSU will host another open house on its Mission Valley plan on September 24th. The U.S. Supreme Court is paving the way for the Trump administration to deny nearly all asylum claims along the southern border. KPBS reporter Max Rivelin-Nadler spoke to asylum seekers in Tijuana today as they continue their wait for answers.
The Supreme Court ruling means that a new Trump administration rule can stand. Asylum seekers will now have to apply at a third country that they've traveled through for asylum before applying for asylum in the United States. 23-year-old Anthony Pinera arrived at the San Isidro port of entry Wednesday morning with 3 bags of luggage. He had been waiting alone in Tijuana for 4 months and 11 days for his number to be called so he could enter the U.S. and begin the asylum process. He left El Salvador because he says as a young man, he was a target of gangs. He desperately wants to claim asylum in the U.S.
America is a free country. It's a country of opportunities. It's a country of laws. It's a country that has respect for who you are.
I tell him about last night's Supreme Court ruling, and he says that he wouldn't think about applying for asylum in any of the countries he passed through.
All of Central America is the same. It's the worst. Mexico, how many have been murdered? Same as Central America and South America, too. We can't go, too.
Pinera's number was called, and he entered the U.S., but under the new rule, he will eventually be barred from declaring asylum and most likely be deported back to El Salvador. The new rule doesn't just apply to Central Americans. For months, thousands of migrants from Africa, Asia, and elsewhere have arrived in Tijuana after flying to South America and traveling overland to the southern border. Alfred, who asked me not to share his last name out of fear of being targeted by gangs in Mexico, has been waiting in Tijuana for over 2 months. He fled Cameroon because of its ongoing political crisis and traveled through several countries on his way to the U.S.
I passed through Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, that's Cotonou, Ethiopia, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico.
He will now have to apply for asylum in one of those countries first and complete the process there to be considered for asylum in the United States. Would he consider going back to one of them to declare asylum?
Not at all. Asylum is where you think you have security. So I can't be forced to seek for asylum anywhere. That's against my wish. So I don't think it's a good decision.
After saying it would give migrants work permits, Mexico has yet to do so for many, and Alfred is running out of money. Still, he's determined to stay and wait for as long as it takes him to be processed for asylum, even if this ban is still in place.
I will still have to try. I'll try.
Why do you have to try?
Because I think where I have to, like the U.S. is the most safest place for me.
Asylum officers were given new guidance on the rule this morning. Whether the people who were brought into the U.S. at El Chaparral will be denied entry based on the fact that they haven't applied for asylum elsewhere remains to be seen. Maxwell Van Nadler, KPBS News.
Local leaders are planning a trip to Washington to work on another critical issue at the border: pollution. In recent days, another sewage spill from Mexico into the Tijuana River forced closures in Imperial Beach. In the weeks ahead, Mayor Serge Dedina will be joined by San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and others. They're urging lawmakers to fund an EPA plan to fix the decades-long problem. It would include some matching funds from Mexico. Today, the House of Representatives took action that could be the first steps towards impeaching President Trump. A committee led by Democrats voted to set guidelines for a possible impeachment investigation. Potential issues include revelations in the Mueller report and the use of taxpayer dollars at Trump properties. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she supports the move, but knows it brings a political risk.
They understand that impeachment is a very divisive measure. But if we have to go there, we'll have to go there. But we can't go there unless we have the facts, and we will follow the facts, and we will follow the obstruction that the president is making of us are getting the facts and make our decision when we're ready. That's the only question. That's all I'm going to say about this subject. And there's nothing different from one day to the next. We're still on our same path.
If the House ever approves articles of impeachment, it's unlikely the Republican-controlled Senate would vote to remove President Trump from office. It's a smaller field for tonight's Democratic debate. Only 10 candidates made the cut. The debate is happening in Houston, and that's where activists from Greenpeace are hosting a 24-hour demonstration. They're hanging from a bridge to block shipments of oil and bring attention to the issue of climate change. Camila Burnell has more on the candidates taking part in tonight's showdown.
For many Democratic voters, the question continues to be, who can beat Trump in 2020?
Nothing can stop us, because winning is what Americans do. Winning is what we know best.
But the 10 presidential hopefuls who are set to debate in Houston all say they can take on the president.
This is a fight we will win.
The answer to Donald Trump is not playing his game. Together, we will make Donald Trump a one-term president.
A recent poll showing that 55% of those questioned are more likely to say they want the party to nominate a candidate with a strong chance of beating Trump. Only 39% said they're looking for a candidate who shares their position on major issues.
I got a plan for that. In fact, I got multiple plans for this.
The polls also showing that ahead of the debate, Joe Biden continues to lead at 24%.
He cannot, and I will not, let this man be reelected President of the United States of America.
In second place with 18%, Elizabeth Warren, who will share the debate stage with Biden for the first time. Only 3 other candidates polling at 5% or more: Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and Beto O'Rourke.
And I want to make sure that I'm representing their interests and serving them as President of the United States.
The remaining candidates all scored 2% or less. Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
And gun control has been an issue on the campaign trail, and now it's an issue for corporate America. Today, more than 100 CEOs from major companies sent a letter to the Senate, urging them to strengthen background law checks similar to those passed by the House in recent weeks. Here in San Diego, a new gun control law took effect today. Gun owners must now keep their guns locked in a container or disabled by a trigger lock. The ordinance is intended to reduce accidental shootings. Lawmakers in Sacramento have taken action to ban gun sales at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. The bill is now awaiting the governor's signature. It would prevent gun shows from selling weapons and ammunition, which could effectively end the events. The agency that governs the fairgrounds recently imposed its own ban, but it's being held up by a legal challenge. New research from the Navy highlights the need for safely storing firearms. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says researchers found troops almost always use their personal guns to kill themselves.
Research shows that troops who have contemplated suicide are actually less likely to have a personal firearm at home. Among those who do have one, they are much less likely to store them safely. Greg Bryan is with the National Center for Veterans Studies at the University of Utah, which led the study.
We need to realize that there is a relationship between the method and the outcome, and that we're going to have to be more creative in how we approach suicide prevention. And then I think downrange, or at least further down the road, what we'll probably find is that we need to have conversations as well about safe storage practices.
Over 1,600 troops were surveyed through the Naval Health Research Center in San Diego. Despite access to military weapons, nearly all sailors, soldiers, and Marines who kill themselves use their personal firearm.
Military has, I think, a lot of options available that many of us who are outside the military don't have. And so, many military installations already require, for instance, that if a service member is living on base, that they store their weapons in an armory, which is a fantastic strategy solution.
Bryan says commanders can also discuss gun safety to encourage the use of trigger locks or storing ammunition away from the gun, which often gives people just enough time to reconsider. Though, at the moment, the Pentagon doesn't have a consistent policy throughout the services. The study appears in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Network Open site. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The hottest July on record.
Fallen prey to the drought.
Devastated by wildfires.
Greenhouse gas emissions.
Threatened by sea level rise.
Our climate is changing, and time is running out to fix it. KPBS brings you special coverage of San Diego's climate crisis. Learn how a warming climate will impact you, your neighborhood, and your world. San Diego's climate crisis begins Monday, September 16th on KPBS TV, KPBS Radio, and KPBS.org.
Well, we can expect things to stay warm through the weekend. Marvin Gomez has more in the forecast.
Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope you're having a great day so far. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. It's been a quiet day for much of the region. We did have those Santa Ana winds across our area earlier today. And overall, as we head into tonight, partly cloudy skies are going to be across the metro area. Temperatures coming down to 68 degrees tonight. And overall, much of San Diego County staying in the 60s. Across Oceanside, 62. A couple of clouds out there. Mount Laguna, clear skies. Borrego Springs coming down to 77 for tonight. As we head into tomorrow, it is going to be a little bit warmer, and that's because we are going to have an upper level high pressure system that's going to help increase those temperatures. 81 will be the high for San Diego as we take you towards Escondido, 92 degrees, 108, heading into Borrego Springs. Lots of sunshine for everyone. Here you can see pretty much the warm flow of air coming from the south. We are going to see light winds across our area as well. And Saturday, a little bit of the same, lots of sunshine, and we're going to continue to stay dry across our area. Taking a look at your AccuWeather 5-day forecast along the coast, mostly sunny conditions. Temperatures will continue to stay in the mid to lower 80s for the next couple of days. It is definitely going to be a great weekend. Inland temperatures a little bit warmer heading into Saturday with a high of 96, 93 for Sunday, and 85 on Monday. On Monday, we are going to see a trough moving inland across the north, and that's going to help us here locally just to cool down temperatures a little bit. And you can see that clearly here in our desert forecast. Triple digits for the next 3 days, and then Monday, the highs only reaching 98 degrees. As far as conditions go across the mountain, we are going to see 80s for Friday and Saturday, 78 on Sunday, and 73 as we take you into our Monday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. Back to you.
Heart attack patients may soon get access to a new therapy using pig hearts. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chetlani spoke with the researcher developing this innovation.
Here at the UC San Diego campus in La Jolla, researchers are working on a medical treatment. It's to treat one of the leading causes of death in the United States, heart disease. I spoke with the lead researcher to find out more. Scientist Karen Christman grinds up chemically altered pig heart tissue. This material is no longer a collection of cells because it's been turned into a fine powder. And when she adds water to it, she creates a hydrogel.
So a hydrogel is basically a physical material that's gel-like, that's water swollen. So kind of actually the best example of a hydrogel, not one we use, but the best example is Jell-O.
After a heart attack, the heart's tissue is damaged and it forms a scar. So it becomes difficult for healthy cells to come in and replace this tissue. This situation can slow down the heart's performance and could lead to heart failure. So Christman created this hydrogel to help repair the scarred heart tissue.
And when you inject in the person's heart, it sets up into a hydrogel and serves as this new template for healing inside the heart. And so the body's own cells come in, migrate into it, and help repair that damaged region.
This gel is injected into the damaged part of the heart via a catheter. The gel opens up the scar tissue and sticks around for about 3 weeks before biodegrading.
You get more cardiac muscle and less scar tissue. And so because you have more muscle, less scar tissue, you have better performance of your heart, which helps to prevent or at least slow down the progression to heart failure.
This therapy has been tested in animal hearts, but Christman says her clinical trial is the first time it's been tested in human hearts. Randall Newman was one of those humans. He and his wife went on an 8-mile bike ride just days before he started feeling strange. Tell me about the day that you realized that you were having a heart attack. Like, what were you feeling in your body?
It felt like heartburn. So then I was starting to feel tingling in my arms, and that's when we went to the emergency room.
Newman had a heart attack 5 years ago when he was 62. He says he was open to new therapies so he could get better. At the time, when they were offering this pig gel therapy to you, this hydrogel, why did you decide to go for it?
Just, looking for something and to improve my heart function, to give me better opportunities in future life.
One of the things he was willing to try was this hydrogel therapy. So far, he's happy with the results. He says the percentage of blood being pumped out of his heart at the time of the heart attack was around 48%, which is on the low range. And after?
Went from like 48 to 63.
Newman says that happened just a year after you finished the trial.
The hope would be that if the hydrogel is effective, then some of the medications that we typically give to patients following a heart attack wouldn't be necessary.
UC San Diego cardiologist Tony De Maria helped design the preclinical trials on animal models. The therapy is promising, he says, especially since typical prescription drugs can often have side effects like excessive bleeding and fatigue. But the clinical trial only involved 15 patients, so De Maria says there's still more to test.
When you're looking for safety, then you need large samples, because if let's say you did a study of 30 patients and everybody did well, but the 31st patient had some terrible reaction, that would still have implications.
Back at her lab, scientist Karen Christman says the experience of patients like Randall Newman shows the trial had good results. All 15 patients improved in exercise. But there was one surprise.
We saw more changes in later patients, so those that actually had had their heart attack at least a year prior, whereas we saw really less changes or no changes in the earlier patients in terms of their heart size.
Christman says the therapy wasn't as effective in patients who had just suffered a heart attack because their bodies were still reacting to the incident and weren't as receptive to the hydrogel. So she says the company making the gel, Ventrix, is raising funds for a phase 2 clinical trial to look specifically at how this therapy works in later stage heart attack patients. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
The KPBS Midday Edition podcast has a discussion on this story and the science behind it. You can find it at kpbs.org. New developments tonight on that deadly boat fire that killed 34 people off the Channel Islands. The National Transportation Safety Board now says all 6 crew members were asleep when the fire broke out. Investigators had been looking into whether a night watchman was on duty. A lawyer for the boat company denies the claim that all members were asleep. Meanwhile, we've also learned the remains of the last missing victim have been recovered. A serious warning out when it comes to wildfires. Some 75,000 homes in San Diego are at risk for extreme wildfires. KPBS's Maya Trabosi explains the findings of a new report.
The 2019 Wildfire Risk Report by CoreLogic looked at cities in the western United States in its study. It found Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Diego were the top 3 in terms of the number of homes at high to extreme wildfire risk. Last year, California had the most burned acres of any state in the region. The main cause of wildfire damage is the proximity of property to fuel, and California has a lot of it. Development has historically pushed more eastward to areas with more dense brush. CoreLogic wildfire expert Tom Jeffrey says about 80% of all wildfire ignitions are caused by humans.
It's a situation where you have a large concentration of people located in an area that contains an equally large amount of fuels.
The report shows just over 75,000 homes in the San Diego metropolitan area in the high to extreme risk category, with a reconstruction cost of more than $35 billion. Maya Trabosi, KPBS News.
Affordability is a huge issue when it comes to the housing crisis. Now, some relief is on the way for renters. A bill that puts a cap on rent increases is headed to the governor's desk. It limits annual increases to 5% plus inflation. The new law would not apply to newer houses built in the past 15 years. Exceptions are granted for some single-family homes and duplexes. The cost of education is also stretching people's budget. We recently told you about a new tuition plan offered by UC San Diego Extension. Participating students agree to pay back tuition cost only after graduating and once they earn more than $40,000 a year. Earlier today, I spoke with one of the first students selected.
And I started reading about it and I got excited. I almost got goosebumps because this made it possible. I didn't have the stress of saving. I didn't have the stress of having to go find a loan and do all of that. I could just start. And I have 4 kids and a house with my husband and trying to get all of that together. Saving's hard, you know, all of that is very hard because I want it all to go into my family. And this was like, wow, this is the right answer. If it hadn't been for that, I don't think I would have applied for the program at all.
So why is this better for you? Why is this so different for you than just a traditional loan?
Well, I think when it came down to reading everything about it, that it was like this program's putting into me first, and they're teaching me these skills, and I don't have the stress of worrying about how I'm making these payments or anything right now. No, that didn't even factor in. I'm free to absolutely focus on learning the material. And by doing that, I know that I'm going to get a job that's going to absolutely utilize all of these new skills I'm using, and then I start paying that back. And that's just like a relaxing, like it really does take the stress and the anxiety that I know a lot of people other than me, we all feel this together. It takes that out of the equation and just makes it so much more accessible. And it's not just about the payment. There's this huge support system that comes with that I didn't even expect was going to be a part of that.
So lastly, there were only 50 students selected for this program, for this pilot program. How do you feel about being one of those 50? And what do you think about whether or not this program should be extended?
I was so excited to be one of the 50 that's in this pilot program. And my excitement was twofold, because after I read everything about it and I applied to it, I sent the link to my oldest son, he's 21, immediately. And I was like, hey, check this out. And then I walked down the hall and knocked on his door, and I was like, hey, Paul, like, check this out. This is really something I think you should look at. I feel great about it. I applied. And after a couple of days, he was like, yeah, and he applied for it. And he got in before I did. He got his acceptance email before I did. And I was put on the wait list. And so as a mom, I was thrilled that he was a part of that. And then I was able to get in, and I got the acceptance email, and then we celebrated together. But two in the same family going to school like this wouldn't really be possible without a program that's structured in this way, at least not for us. And so being a part of this pilot group, it's exciting, and I feel like we're doing something really important that's going to make a lasting effect on education, on people's lives, and I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Claire Gregowitz, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.